Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Autopsy with Maddee P. I'm your host, Maddee P. Girl. What is cracking, queen? I did miss you. How could I not? Look at that face. Okay. Last week we talked about stress, and editing that sucked. I repeated myself like 50 fucking times. But when I'm editing, I don't know what I said last. I'm not going to find out. So, sorry, I'm sassy today. Don't know what's going on. Anyways, last week, I think the issue was we didn't do any warm-ups. And I had to warm up through the actual message of the podcast, and I'm not doing that again. And I'm trying to find a medium ground with these warm-ups because they're fucking ridiculous and they're a waste of everyone's time. And I know motherfuckers are clicking off before they can even get to the whole point of this. So we're going to do just a few this week to try to get me reeled in. My life is the same. Are you surprised? I filmed like 3 days ago. Everything's the same. I have nothing to say about my personal life. I'm still happy. I'm still healthy. And I'm still here to brag about it. Thanks. So, I guess we'll start. First off, I have Wicked written down. Fuck Wicked. I am not a musical theater girl. That shit pisses me off. Like, Annie, get some parents. Shut up. We're going to pretend I didn't say that. Sorry. Just viciously came for Annie for absolutely no reason. I'm so sorry about that, Annie. Considering I just did an angel tree and I have a soft spot for kids, probably shouldn't say stuff like that. Because I don't mean it, everyone. I don't mean it. But we've got Wicked 2 out. Is that true? How is there a second one? The first one was garbage. And I get it. Everyone loved it. My sister dragged me there. And it was a horrible waste of my time. And I hated every second of it. But I will always love Ariana Grande. She's a masterpiece. She's up there with Lady Gaga for me. I think it's the vocals. I think it's the hard work that this woman puts in. But the first go around with Cynthia and Ariana's dynamic outside of the film, I don't remember it. I was asleep for half of it and or trying not to fall asleep for the other half. And it was far too long. And these musical theater things, people are singing, shut up in the theater. Be quiet. Have some respect. You sound like shit. Okay? Unless you're a kid. But like as a full grown adult, why are you belting in the theater? That's why we have showers. That's why we have cars. Come on. Keep that shit to yourself. I'm really sassy right now and I need to tone it down for real. But their dynamic off screen was funny and just cute. Now, this recent dynamic that I'm seeing between the two is something I can't stomach. There's something going on there. And I'm not sure what it is, but I will get to the bottom of it. Rest assured you. So I thought I would just bring that up to feel out. Like are you guys feeling the same way? Is it unsettling to you? And then come to find Cynthia has a wife. And it's not Ariana Grande. I'd be pissed if I was the wife, but that's neither here nor there. Now, just giving my opinion on something that I don't know about. So if you like Wicked, I'm sorry. I never will. And I'm kind of annoyed that it's back because now it's going to be everything everyone's talking about. But this is stupid. But the Target aesthetic of Wicked smacks. I saw a pair of sheets the other day and I was like, if this wasn't Wicked oriented, I would buy this. There was a dress too. I was like, what y'all got going on? Too bad I hate it, but I need to stop saying hate on this podcast. But like when people are like, don't say hate, I hate it. Deeply hate it. Sorry about that. And I try to refrain from every time I try to refrain from certain things in life, I'm just not meant to refrain from them. And y'all are trying to make me soft out here. And it's just not going to work for me. I've refrained from a lot in my life, let me tell you. I've changed my ways in the ways that I am willing. And saying hate is just something that's going to stay. Just like saying cunt. Sorry. Just going to happen. Warm-up number 2. These are awful. I write these warm-ups, I don't even know when, just to get it out of the way so that when I sit down, I have something to talk about. And they're atrocious. Who wrote these cards? Number 2, it's Christmas. Balsam fir candle. Thank you. And that means that I'm going to say something super fucking embarrassing. Because why would I not? Why would I keep things to myself that I should keep to myself? You guys know when I found out that Santa wasn't real? If you're a kid, click off. If you're a kid, you don't need to be here actually at all. I was 13. Barely cresting, if you will. Barely crowned. And I found out Santa wasn't real. And that's an embarrassing thing, but I think y'all can tell. I will always believe in magic. Which is surprising. I don't like Wicked and stuff. Hate. Sorry. I am just a magic believer. And I just thoroughly always believed in believing. Like, you tell me Santa's not real, you're going to kill him. Like an elf when they... This is stupid. This is so stupid. What a fucking conversation. An elf, whenever they have to generate the Santa sleigh, that shit clicked for me. I've been a believer since that day. You cannot rip it out of me. So I just kept letting it skate back. All the signs were pointing towards Santa not real. To me, I'm keeping him alive. This is my job. This is my literal job, and I'm the only one partaking at this point because everybody's not believing in Santa anymore. And even worse, to make this situation even worse, I found out at the ripe age of 13, was that when I ran upstairs to tell my dad, my sister spilled it, of course. The Grinch. Sorry, Mary Love. Scrooge. He goes, so now you know the Easter Bunny's not real? Flip my box. Flip the whole lid. The lid's gone. Lid's not in the room with us. What are you talking about? Like, actually, what are you talking about? And I found out everything was not real at once. And that's how much of a believer I was. It couldn't click. It was just Santa in my brain. The rest of them were still real. And that was my first signs of delusion. I've been in distress since that day. Actually, everything has gone downhill since then, if I'm being perfectly honest about it. Still kind of heated, so that is my story. Okay. Next. What do we got going on? Okay. Do you guys want to know another fact about me? I'm a debutante. Debutante? I used to be in cotillion. Yeah, I did. I had this midnight blue dress. Navy blue has always been my color. It pops on me, okay? And I hated every second of it. I mean, I had fun with my friends, and then I had this crush. His name was... I caught myself there. You're not going to know his name. But he danced with me there. And then we started dating at school because of it. So that's pretty much the only bonus. And I did not do the Azalea Festival or grow up and continue to do that. I think that's obvious. I don't think I need to say that to you. Last and final point. Should I have exposed that I was in cotillion? Because I'm pretty sure it works on other kids. So, like, if you're thinking of sending your kid, they want to go, it'll probably work on them. I know American Finnish style now because of that. And I don't eat like a pig. So, 1, 2, 3, release them. That's my third and final point. My fourth and final point. I used to come on here and tell you guys my vocal stems. I kind of miss that era because there was a lot. And right now I'm really bad in the 1, 2, 3, release them. And that video is fucking hysterical. And there's a studio version, if you've not heard it, of her singing that. And I need you to pause, go watch that now, because you will shit your pants. Thank you. Language. I've been trying. No, I'm not. It's just like the hate thing. I'm not trying to be better. I'm not. I simply am not. Now, another vocal stem that I had, and I'm going to keep this very brief because no one ever knows what I'm talking about. And it's just doesn't make any sense to anybody but my sister. But I thought I'd try it out with you guys. Do you guys know the one where it's like, George doesn't go to our school. George Tropicana. He's Cuban. George Glass. There's not a George Glass at our school. No? Doesn't ring a bell? Okay. Nice. All right. I don't even know what that, I think it's like Brady Bunch or something. And I've been just using that in every context that I could possibly use it in. And that was the most painful warm-ups I've ever been part of. And I've been part of some excruciating warm-ups here. But we kept it under 10 minutes, right at 10 minutes. I'll take it. Today, what's going on in the autopsy world? Girl. So I thought that we would take it back to the beginning. I thought we'd do a little recap. And as you know, one of the hardest questions for me in my personal sobriety was, am I young or am I an alcoholic? And it was a very painful question. It took a very long time to answer. And it feels really scary, I think, to know that you're just giving your life up to sobriety when you make that decision. And I was always really hopeful that being an alcoholic was not the answer. Even once I chose sobriety, I was just praying that somehow, some way I would stumble upon the real answer, and that's that I get to keep drinking and get to keep having fun and keep my life exactly the same. Now, the reason I'm kind of going through this, I'm not going to tell my story. I'm going to try to refrain from repeating the queen of repetition. I'm the queen of repetition. It pisses me off, and I'm very sorry about that. It just happens. But I'm trying to refrain from repetition of past episodes where we talk about, am I young, am I an alcoholic? Or we talk about the beginning stages and how I got into it. But that question is brought up to me on the internet, on TikTok, and in my life, where people ask me, what was your breaking point, kind of, and how did you get into recovery? And I think that this question was a question that I asked a lot, or like I would be too scared to ask people, but I would like look it up on TikTok and like the search. And it was a way personally for me to assess my alcoholism. I didn't realize that's what I was doing at the time, but I was constantly, I was assessing my drinking through other drinkers. And then I was assessing my sobriety through other sober people. And I wanted this to be a place where people could come with questions like that, because I feel like I could never find the fucking answers anywhere. So that is why we were kind of going through some of this, the history I have. Now, in some of those old podcasts, I don't rewatch them, and I don't know what's on the internet, and I don't want to know. You know, I just live in this happy bubble where I keep posting every week and I grind, and that is what I do. And we are keeping it that way. I don't look behind me. I look forward. Thank you for that. I used to say when addressing certain things like this, that if you're questioning your drinking, if you're an alcoholic, that you probably are one. That wasn't like a big focal point of any of my points or the podcast or anything, but I did bring that up. And now that I have grown into sobriety and into recovery to know it the way I do now, I don't necessarily think that's true. I do think that a lot of normal people question their fucking drinking. And I have seen it. People who maybe blacked out like once on accident, or like got really drunk one time, or like a few times in a week, and then they're questioning it. So I think a lot of normal people tend to question it. I think I didn't question mine, if that helps you at all. I think though, I do obviously applaud anyone who remotely questions their drinking. That is something that I could never do. And I think now that's more of a trait of a normie than I thought before. So I wanted to kind of reel back in that statement that is probably on the internet somewhere about me saying that. So, and as you know, another focal point of us being here together is that I encourage you to always jump into things that are going to affect you later in life. This podcast is a lot about our future self. My sobriety is a lot about my future self and tackling things head on. And just like I said last week, walking through fire. That's what this is about. So I think that you deserve to have fun, healthy coping mechanisms and positive fun that makes sense and sticks with you forever, and memories that you get to keep that are not just floating in ether after you black out. So I think today's podcast is also, to help those who maybe are struggling, and then, just stick around, okay? You may benefit from this, because also, again, like I said, it is a place for people to come who are just sober curious and want to hear the beautiful life that sobriety has given people. You don't have to have a problem to be sober, and I will always encourage that behavior. And to me, sobriety is all about just learning joy, pleasure. To me, it was my personal opportunity at life, and it is the same for you too. Everything doesn't just go away. You don't change everything about yourself. It is just your shot at forever and at a life that is sustainable. And I always thought it was just everything being erased. And as we know, I viewed sobriety as punishment, but really it was just me building a life with fucking meaning to it. And that is another, I'm repeating myself already. I can hear it. I can hear it, and I'm sorry, and I can hear it. But it is another focal point of this podcast is building a life with fucking meaning, with fucking joy. Whether you remain sober, whether you don't, whether you want to, whether you don't want to. The whole point is that when you walk away from this life, you have meaning, you have fucking dignity, you have honesty, humility, and you have giggles. Giggles. And all of that honesty, humility, and stuff is the cost that pure, real joy provides you. That's the type of joy we're talking about. And nothing here is a temporary situation. And I hate to say this, but alcohol is poison. Okay. And honestly, though, when I was a drinker, that used to kind of entice me. I would eat rat poison if you put it in front of me. And I'm being so serious. I wish I wasn't. But we're here for vulnerability. Like I say every time I say something delusional. And that used to entice me. I would like knowing that it was poison. Now I view that differently, and that's just a little to inch you in the right direction now when I say it, because I was not a goody two shoes at any point in my life. And let me tell you, as we're kind of getting into this, I knew that I had a problem with drinking far before I quit. I used to periodically, when things were getting really bad, and this was before I quit Coke. I think, and I've said this before, I think if I would have quit Coke / drugs, it wasn't just Coke, drugs, and alcohol at the same exact time, it would have been, for me in my personal life, I don't know how sustainable that would have been for me. And I think I'm blessed for that. You know my story, so I'm not here to reiterate, but waking up one day and realizing that I'm a fucking cokehead. Thanks. Sorry to anyone watching. I'm so sorry. So I remember, though, I have memory of keeping this in my notes app, keeping days. I would count days. And the longest I can remember getting up to was 8 days. And it was pure torture. I knew that there was something wrong with me. And whether I bottled that up and I kept it really deep, I could look in the mirror and recognize that there was something fucking wrong with her. And yeah, those 8 days were completely miserable. But it was 8 days. And we are now celebratory people. So when I look back at that, I kind of applaud her, honestly, because she was a baby trying to walk and had no idea what the future would hold, with that it would far surpass 8 days and that she would finally find out what's wrong with her. And I was so embarrassed when I couldn't make it past X amount of days. And I didn't tell anybody about it. No one would know that I wasn't. Well, people would know because they're like, why are you not drunk right now? I'm always drunk. But I would write it off, and I was just, because if I told somebody, that meant I actually had to quit. A. B. I couldn't. I literally could not. And it did take me a long time to recognize that I was a drug addict. We talk a lot about alcoholism here because in my bones, that is a detail that I know about myself, and that is going to be a battle for the rest of my life, is my alcoholism. But I am 1,000% a drug addict, 1,000%. And it was actually the first thing that I fell in love with far before alcohol. And I used to think that I think I ignored it because I would think that I only use drugs to further facilitate my drinking. And that is alcoholic ass thinking. That is something that a crazy person thinks. So I know a lot of people label themselves as such, and maybe one day we'll talk about it, maybe we won't, but if you need help with that, just go ahead and call it as it is. And I wish that I would have, because I think I would have healed a lot of my scars earlier instead of just focusing on alcoholism when I indeed am a huge drug addict. And this is again about my own story and about my personal life, I say every week, but drugs were what I loved first. That was my first, just like, people, I mean, I had my moments with alcohol where I recognized that this is what I was missing all of my life, the true love story that I have with alcohol, and you've heard it before, but I had that story with drugs way before that. Like, I remember, like, 13 taking pills for the first time and just knowing that I couldn't feel pain anymore. And that was like, I wasn't even an emo kid, but deep down I was, and I suffered at the hands of depression at a very early age. And it united me with this bliss that I had been looking for all along. And I think for me too, and to reframe that thinking of if you think you are, then you must be. I think more so if you can't quit. And that's what I recognized in myself. I can't quit. That is the label truly of alcoholism, of drug addiction. And again, I am not here. The purpose of my sobriety is that I learn to fit into life. I am just here to help you. So I'm not here to call anybody out to tell you what you are. That is not any of my fucking business. And that is something I've thankfully stood very firm on. I haven't, during my sobriety, I learned early that it's not my fucking business what other people are up to. And the whole sole purpose of this is keeping my side of the street clean only. Removing judgment, not looking into other people's shit because it's not my business. And letting people be free was the cost of my freedom, period. And I won't go into depth on this either because this is something that we have talked about many a time, the home hole, if you will. I always had a very deep pit in my stomach, very extremely saddened, desolate pit that could not be filled. And later I had the pleasure of naming that addiction, of naming that alcoholism. And it was a feeling deep down that I knew that I was demented and that there was something severely wrong with me that I could never, ever let another person see into. It was the greatest secret. And I think that secret alone caused me to keep so many other secrets and lies and shit to cover me up because people could get closer and closer. And in order to protect that piece of me, it required a lot of lies and a lot of hurting other people. And that is the cost of me learning and being united with this beautiful life now. And, I'm not going to go back and turn around at my past because that brings me to this place now, which is the cheesiest thing. But as you all know, I would not change where I am in this moment in my life for the entire world. I wouldn't. And my life's not perfect. It's not everything that I want it to be, but I am blessed beyond measure. Denial was definitely always a really, really big part of my story. I mean, as it is for a lot of people, but I deny. And somebody in my life taught me growing up, deny till you die. Deny. And I learned that shit and I ran with it. Girl, I was denying everything to myself, to other people. The threat of death was never enough. I think the threat of jail became enough at one point towards the end, and that was enough to help me quit drugs, I think, because that's way worse than death. Honestly, like, you're not putting me in jail. I'm sorry, not happening. It's like the kidnapper situation. Like, you are not taking me. And many of you know, like, the exact day, all the story behind what happened to me and what kind of pushed me into sobriety. And I had some lethal hangovers, sister. I'm talking lethal, Deathly Hallows hangovers. And none of it ever fucking mattered. Which, in true alcoholic fashion, I was a hair of the dogger. And that shit is dangerous. If you're out there and you're looking for answers, when you start hairing of the dogging like that, it gets to be a vicious cycle very quick. Addictive personalities, stay away from hair of the dog, okay? But I did have one that was so bad. And I had a lot, y'all. I'm talking shaking, like, I'm talking convulsing. I'm talking waking up in your car with blood clots in your leg. I'm talking bad. Some shit that I thank the stars I do not deal with today. But I had one that just, it all clicked. And it was, I don't even know if it was the worst hangover I've ever had. Because y'all know a Coke hangover. If you don't, bless your soul. Count it as a blessing. I'm going to stop right now for you to count it. Because, sister. And to be honest, looking back, and the way that I will talk about this today is different because I tell my story in terms of the universe today, or God, or have you be it. What have you be it? You know what I'm trying to say. And I truly believe that the reason that hangover was so bad and the reason that it all clicked in place was the stars. It was the universe. It was my higher power that day. And it was just like this call that maybe I need help. But I'll do like a very small recap because a lot of you have heard my story before. But basically, I was going to church this day and I was drinking all night until 4 o'clock in the morning. And I recognized that the only reason that I was even going to church was so that I could continue drinking after on somebody else's dime. And I did go. I recognized before I left that it was going to be to get rid of my shakes, but it was the type of imprisonment that I was in. And, you know, whether I was in denial, whether I wasn't, I was participating in this imprisonment. And this is how I lived my life. And I knew that I had to, and I didn't know what help would look like. I didn't know if I would physically be able to get help. And that is a very scary part too, is that you don't know if somebody can physically help you. You know, they might rip that bottle out of your hands, but what if you are so sick at that cost? And it's like some like come to Jesus kumbaya meeting. The questions are big. So yeah, I followed through with my plan, and then I came home and I proceeded to pour out all of my fucking alcohol. To be honest, I remember that moment so well because it wasn't fucking me pouring out that alcohol. I was not a quitter. I would never pour out perfectly good alcohol. I would see TikToks online of people being like, I'm going to quit. And at this point, I had been looking through so much on the internet. I'm scouring. And, you know, it's my subconscious. It's the inner Maddie screaming and looking for help. But to me, it's just like, you know, being cute, maybe like a little investigation going on. But I'm telling you, in that moment, me pouring out the alcohol was the first taste of shit not being me, of it being something so much bigger. And I'm not going to sit here today and make this all kind of based in just higher power and stuff, but that is the way that I wanted to share my story, because I felt like I have never really shared that version of it with you. I've shared what's actually happened, but not the spiritual kind of aspect. And it was just like there was a tug that I could not deny throwing out that alcohol. It was the truth in a way that I had never seen it before, in a way that I could not deny. It's one thing to have clarity in a moment and decide that you're not going to drink anymore, and it's something else to stay sober for 1.5 years. That feeling stayed with me. It never left. To this day, I still have that feeling, that honest truth. And it sucked. I hated that it was like this power had come over me, and I couldn't drink it away. I used to have thoughts and ideas that I'm doing bad, and moments where I could see into the disaster that was my life, but not in this way where I couldn't drink it away. And I hated that. And I tried to go back. After this feeling and this emotional turmoil, I tried to go back and drink it away. And what would happen to me? I would end up drunk and then in tears each night. Drunk and in tears. I was a happy drunk. Y'all know this about me. I drank to be united with oblivion. I drank to find peace. I drank to cope. I drank to do anything, to celebrate, to keep my life a party, to stay young, to not have to be thrown into this adulthood that looks so miserable for everybody. To escape misery is why I drank. And so I was not a crying drunk. Like, I had my moments, sure, but like I was not a crying drunk. And every night I would cry my eyes out, and I would just be begging for the sun to rise every time. And I remember that pit in my stomach so well, because this was like the true spiral of rock bottom. Because as many of you know, I had like a month period where I stayed away from the drink, and then I went back over my sister's birthday, and that's like the 9-day kind of bender that I'm referring to right now. I think it's because the thing about quitting drinking and drugs, specifically drinking right now we're talking about, is that you know that it will be over and that it will end and things will not be the same, but you do not know that you'll be okay. And you don't know if you'll be happy. And that is a terrorizing kind of circumstance to be in. And you just surrender and you blindly walk in to this life. And I wanted to give in to the fear side so bad that none of this was going to work. And that's what rock bottom looks like, when there is no other choice, but you have to try. It's like your last shot. And there's this big moment where you quit and you have clarity. And then there's a big question mark over what you're walking into and what all of it is going to look like. And that was one of the scariest moments of my entire life. And I had done some terrifying things. I put myself in some terrifying situations. That was the scariest, giving up alcohol in that moment and not knowing what to do. But I come to this roadblock where fate may have it, honestly. Truly, where fate had pushed me here. And I tried to go back. I tried to continue drinking. I could not. And it's so fucking beautiful that's how, when I look back, that's kind of how my story is painted to me in this way. I felt like I didn't have a choice in the matter. And to me, it represented drinking too, that I didn't have a choice in the matter anymore. And during those 9 days that I speak about, where I went back to a bender, sobriety followed me everywhere. And I remember close people to me that told me not to drink, and told me not to go back. But they knew I had an issue, and they knew that I was struggling really deep down, and they had never seen me not drink for 9 days, or for the month that I had not drank. And I didn't reveal to them my reasoning behind it, or like this push into a new life that I had been called into. And I was confused and scared. But people knew. And during those 9 days, evidence of sobriety was everywhere. The signs and the pushes that I was receiving, every inclination, my body gave me every reason to stop. Like, my body was to a point, and like, I'm not even talking about the physical health effects that y'all know I faced. Horrible physical health effects. But it was like in turmoil. It was rejecting alcohol spiritually. And it was just like everything was pointing me back to recovery. And so I searched feverishly, literally feverishly, for people who had done it before, who had gotten sober before, specifically people my age, and people on the internet specifically, and in books and stuff, and in any form of media, any form that I could digest at all, that made sobriety this beautiful thing, and that I could see the glow in their eyes and that their life was better. So I'd find girls with several years. Emily Sedona was a really big one for me, which is so random. And y'all have heard me talk about this before. And Spears Not Beers. I grew up next to her down the street, and I don't even know if she knows, but she was a pivotal part in me getting sober, but just by watching. And the main one, above all, Lala Kent. Y'all know I'm a Lala Kent Vanderpump Rules ass bitch. That is me. And I would watch her and all the girls in this amazement that they weren't constantly thinking of alcohol or being drunk. And before I could do it on my own, I would just watch them in this utter amazement, because that was not something that I could comprehend with my life. But again, these signs, like I couldn't continue. And I couldn't believe, like, it only took 9 days after a month. And it honestly took 2 or 3 days that I really hit my rock bottom there. And I have never been that low in my life. I was so low. And it was to a point that I genuinely felt that it was, trigger warning, easier to die than it was to get sober. That is how I felt. I think that really shows the mind of an alcoholic, that death felt easier to me. And that's when I figured and got help and figured that sobriety might just be a new type of torture. And I was willing to accept that. It was the first time that I saw that drinking wasn't fun and that I had to. And that was the truth that I couldn't unsee, was that this shit isn't even fucking fun anymore. And I was so delusional that I could see, I was only a little bit out and I could see how delusional I was. And that scared me. Thus, the facade being broken, and there was no joy, no happiness. None of that was on my radar for what this new life was going to be. It was sheer survival of me getting sober. That's what it was. Very quickly, it came to a point where I realized that if I was going to keep sobriety, it had to be in search of me, and it had to be in search of these answers in life that I could never fucking answer. Just like how I say, when I do my career and I do stuff, I do it right, and that I search for what I wanted to do as a kid. These big questions that I have, that I have to do it right. Otherwise, I'm taking a shortcut and I'm cheating myself out of shit. And to me, it was proof that I didn't really want to die. That when everything boiled down between sobriety and not sobriety, and I chose life. I chose to get sober versus die. And that was the type of hope that I needed. I needed hope that there was somewhere there was sunshine, and I couldn't place a finger on it, and I might not see it, and it might not be today, but somewhere it exists. And I remember recognizing that like, and what a great deep thought to have so early in sobriety. Like, I'm kind of proud of that, because it truly is a big, like, turning kind of transitional point, where that was the first time I ever had hope, and I could see it as hope. And I was very, very proud that under pressure, when I needed to choose life, I did. And that I didn't want to die the way that I thought I did. I just really needed help. And that's a very cool thing to recognize early in sobriety. And all this time I had dealt with pain all the same. I had tried to change so many times, so many things. and it never worked. I always tried to shake up my life and deal with this pit in my stomach and this just like overlooming doom around me. And it's hard, I think, for people to hear that about me because I did such a good job of hiding it. But I was like that since I was young. And, you know, I might have been fun. I might have been the party girl. You might not have known it. But there was so much darkness inside of me. So much. Like, that was what I was thinking. And I tried to shake it so many times. I didn't want that to be a piece of me. Sobriety felt like my last shot at getting rid of it. And that maybe this would work because it was just like, that's what I couldn't deal with anymore. And then I did also have a huge bout of fear. What if this doesn't work? And what if I am truly a lost cause? Because I had that hope. But what if I am what I think I am? And that, like, there's nothing that can save me. And that's how I felt for so many years, that there's just nothing that does. And this existence is just a fucking tough one for me. And I would look at those girls in recovery and other people in recovery who were loud and proud about it and just think, there is no way that I can find that happiness in it. It just didn't feel like it was possible for me. And I wanted to bring that up because, you know, I paint sobriety in this beautiful way, but I had to make it like that. I love sobriety. Obviously, clearly I love sobriety, but that wasn't how I walked into it. Just like you maybe are thinking that it's not going to work for you. And it's not possible that you get to be united with that too. And I always felt so different. And I'll repeat myself from the last episode and many before, that I'm not different in my pain. And that I too could be reborn. And that sliver of hope did end up being enough that I would choose life. Yeah, but sobriety kept drawing me in. And it was like the whisper in the wind. As cheesy as it sounds, and as much as I didn't want it to, it did bring me comfort. And I didn't want this life. Again, I'll repeat, I did not want it. And I was praying that there was another answer for my behavior. And there was another answer for the way that I felt and the reason I couldn't stop drinking. And obviously, it wasn't easy. Clearly. For months, I craved alcohol. For months. And I'm not here to paint sobriety in this beautiful picture. You see what my life is like now. That came at an enormous cost. Enormous. Something that I pay over and fucking over until I'm broke and I'm sitting on the side of the street. That's a cost I would pay again. But I'm not here to make it look easy. I refuse to sit here and make it look easy. And I'm here to share hope and be vulnerable. And part of my story is that I really feel sobriety chose me. Just like how we talked about the celibacy episode, a lot of my healing, to me, what it feels like is that it chose me. I am just the classic story of pain and suffering being made into light. And that is something that you can do too. And that is what I want my message to be clear to you, is that you can do it too. And honestly, although I had hit rock bottom after those 9 days and during that time period, I had hit rock bottom many a time before. Many. And honestly, I do think I had a few more rock bottom in me. So although, yes, I had these horrible rock bottom phases, at the same time, I chose this. I think, I don't know if I should say that, but I do think I had a few more to go. I think I could have survived a few more. And I think my story is one of the classic rock bottom, but I can't deny that it was also of choice at the same time. And I want that to be a clear part of my story because I want you to see that it doesn't have to be out of desperation and doom that you get sober. If that's what you're waiting or looking for, is a wake up call, and that maybe I'm not that bad yet. We're big fans of analysis here, if you can't tell. And your story doesn't have to be this desperate thing of doom. We have education now, and that is why I come here and attempt to help you for realizations maybe earlier. And I was blessed to also be given that, and I give freely what I have been given. And I don't look like your typical alcoholic that people think an alcoholic looks like, and a lot of people don't. But I know in my bones that I'm an alcoholic. I know that in the pit of my stomach. Does that hopefully prevent me from going out and drinking again? Yeah, I fucking hope so. But if not, this is a battle that I'll face the rest of my life. So proud looking back that I chose the torture of sobriety. And it's, again, the choose your hard circumstance was what I was faced with. I dove into all of those hard questions without knowing if it'd fucking work out, or if I was going to be in this like deeper think hole that I couldn't even climb out of. And like, I had to define myself in a lot of ways. And that's not to like be braggy. That's to show you that you can do it. And then from there, I would learn peace and I would grow into happiness. And I fought to answer the questions that I thought would silence my mind. I was so on the fence. Like, what if I just live like this and see if my questions get answered? And they did. But again, that came because I chose to make something out of my sobriety. I chose change. Yes, I chose to live that day, and that's where hope started. But then I chose to live in a different sense. And that is how I want my story to come across, because I'm not just so happy and shits and giggles because I got sober, but because I did it the right way. And I chose to change every aspect about myself. And it was somewhere deep down in myself, I knew I was worthy. And I knew I didn't deserve to keep living the life that I was living. And that was the sauce, girl. That was the sauce. Knowing that I was worthy. And that was where that hope was born. And that was the first proof that I knew I was worthy. And I did think of it in those inquisitive ways, because I was on the fence and trying to think myself out and in and backwards and upside down. And I think those were the pushes that of the universe, of those of God, so be it, whatever. Because you can always go back out. I could always go back out. But I could not. When I heard the call of sobriety in the way that I had heard it, I'm just going to get drunk and forget about this. I have to proceed now. And that's how I feel about it for you too. If you're feeling those calls to sobriety, you need to answer before you fool yourself into thinking that death is the better option. And that's what I was kind of on the fence with. Genuinely, is death going to be a better option for me? And that was both in the sense of suicidal shit, and in the sense of drinking myself to death and of being spiritually dead. And in those moments, that's what the clarity was that I knew I wasn't there. I was gone. And I don't know where Maddie was, but she was gone, and she was spiritually completely dead. And I knew that. No matter, I was so fucking drunk, I was so lost, I was so confused. And that's proof to me that it was the stars, that it was God, that it was the universe, that it wasn't me. Because how could somebody so broken and so lost see that? And see it in such a way that she cried herself to sleep every night, trying to deny it. That is fucking power right there. And that is the true, honest power of my story. And I am careful to protect this space so that you aren't misconstrued or told to believe this and believe that and find this. And I never really went into depth about those emotions and those feelings and those realizations that went behind all of this, because I wanted you to be safe. But when you really dig into it, I never hid that sobriety is not of my own doing, of the stars and of other people. Sobriety had nothing to do with me. That shit chose me. Yes, I was broken. Yes, I was delusional. That shit chose me. And I always waited for the right time to relapse. And I won't go too far into this. This is something I've shared before. But I always waited for that right time when it felt like I could go relapse and then be taken back into recovery. And that people would still respect my recovery and that I could still kind of be considered sober, somebody with problems. But really, I was plotting in my mind. I was honest about this while it was happening too. Because I'm like, I'm manipulating here. And I guess I can just say what I think now. And I was willy-nilly with it. When I finally had that thing where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just supposed to say what I'm feeling. You want that? Because I will. That's what's going to start happening now. And I want you to know that just like for myself, the stars did so much of the heavy lifting. That time never came. I never relapsed. And I kept thinking that I would. And I was okay with that. I was content in that. I'm like, this is part of everybody's story. But I kept fucking pushing. And I know I've said it before, but the amount of tiny little bit of willingness and hope, because your God, the stars, whatever, does so much of that heavy lifting for you, because a life of sobriety is a life blessed. Whether you believe in something, whether you don't, I don't know, there is power in that shit, and it is blessed, and you do get what you want. You do get your wildest dreams. And, do with that information what you will, but it is the honest truth about sobriety. And I wish that it was painted more in a light like that. And my hope and my faith have only grown. Only only grown. And I've had my moments. I've been confused. I've wanted to go back. Yes, but my hope and my faith have only grown. And there is this thing in sober people where they look at what could be. And that is my favorite way that I have ever lived my life. And that is the way that I live life now, in this fearless way of what could be if I keep pushing and I keep going, of what could be when I get out of this circumstance, of what could be of me, of others, of my relationships. And again, I'll say it, favorite way that I've ever lived my life and the most beneficial. When I talked about what was going to work and what earlier and what was going to get me out of those feelings and maybe save me, this is what I'm delivered with, to hope and faith that I get to live this way now. And that was my answer all along, was that eventually I would find out what could be. And so I had to learn to flip those what ifs on its head. Those questions that I know a lot of people have, that I had initially getting sober, like, what if this works? What if this doesn't? What if I'm not an alcoholic and I'm giving my life away? What if I hate this and I can't go back now because now I've said I have a problem and all this stuff? Flipping those what ifs early on was super beneficial for me in my recovery. And don't deny the calls. Don't deny the pain, because it can't be drank away. You cannot drink it away. And I know that firsthand experience. You can't drink it away, and there's only one answer, and that's to get help. That's rock bottom right there. When that's fucking rock bottom. When you can't even drink the pain away anymore. And I don't know, there's this and I come to this point, and I said it earlier in the podcast, this big explanation point over rock bottom, that it's common, obviously, in recovery, because we don't know what we're doing. We don't know that we are suffering at the hands of alcoholism and addiction. We don't know we can get help. We don't know if people can physically help us. That doesn't have to be your story too, which is why I come on here and I'm so vulnerable and honest about it. Because I feel as though if I would have seen somebody talking about it in this way sooner, and the type of help that I would receive, and that being like more clearly painted, that I might have gotten help sooner. You don't have to see yourself in my story. If that's what you're looking for, I think I would look for signs of myself in every person that would talk about it, in every place that I could find it. Just somebody who understood, or comparing myself. Am I that? And that doesn't have to be what that looks like for you today. Your story, you don't have to have proof in other people that you're an alcoholic, or that you are suffering at the hands of whatever you're suffering with. When I look back, my final push was destiny. It was God, so be it, whatever, coming over me. And like y'all know, I'm not very religious, but delivering me from evil. I was delivered from evil that day. Now, what my journey and stuff, my higher power and everything looks like now, there's episodes on that, girl. And it is a very important part of my life, because I will always give thanks to that force. Always. And I'm not naming it here. I'm not doing any of that, because I want you to have your own story. And because I want you to be able to paint that however you want to paint it. And that's why I don't label it here. But I had years of pain to come. I knew that. That this pain, this cycle I was in, it would never end. It would never end. And, you know, sometimes still, that fact can sometimes throw me for a loop. But it keeps me from drinking, ironically enough, because I know in my bones, because of pain, I will never be the same. And I can't unsee what the universe has unfolded for me, and the truth of myself, and the truth of my drinking problem. And the truth of it all is that you are worthy and you are deserving. I didn't think I was either. I didn't think also I was deserving of a beautiful life. I wasn't deserving to say I'm an alcoholic. I wasn't sick enough, or I didn't deserve to recover the way other sick people hitting rock bottom had. And that was delusion. And I don't want to sit here and tell you that you're delusional. That's not a fair thing to say. I sure as hell fucking was, though. And when it clicked, kind of, that I was sick and that, like, I was seeing things in all the wrong way, it made me feel deserving, because I knew that what I was thinking was wrong. And I had so much evidence of that. And so I'm just going to go about this by asking for help and taking these steps accordingly and doing what I'm supposed to do. Because I can't trust her, because she's fucking crazy. Sorry. And I want you to know, and I've made this point several times, that missing it does end. The craving of alcohol does end. And it took some months. It took some heartache. It took some serious work, but it ended. And that was a really big question for me early in sobriety. And I asked so many people. And people would always give me this back around answer. Like, it does end. You just learn how to live with it. Blah, blah. I'm like, that doesn't sound fucking fun. What the hell is wrong with you? And I am here to tell you the honest truth. It ends. Like, physically, cravings end. And I don't know why people couldn't answer that fucking question for me, but they couldn't. And I wanted to answer that for you today. It only worked. Staying sober and being sober only worked when it was absolutely everything to me. When recovery became everything to me. And I want that to be another important point. And that my life to come was more important than what had happened. And I couldn't clean up that mess. I'm trying to clean up this mess. And it wasn't about cleaning up the mess. It was about building anew. And yes, that required honesty to go back into my past, to deal with my guilt, to deal with my pain, to make amends, to be honest about what had fucking happened. And that's why I will never turn my back on my past, because it is a huge part of me. And the second I do that, the second I know I'll get sick again, because I lived in that delusional world for so long, and that shit just made me use coke. That shit just made me drink. And as you all know now, that I do, and I said it earlier, I do live a life beyond my wildest dreams. And sobriety is genuinely the single best thing to ever happen to me in my entire life. And I had to go through the bad to find the good. And I would never change that. And I have never been this happy. I thought that I had to get things in life to keep happiness. Like, I had to find the career, the purpose, the job, the man, my kids one day. All of that would equal this happiness. Instead, I get happiness in the mundane, where I don't have to have the answers to be happy. Everything doesn't have to be fixed, and I don't have to know everything to be happy. And that was something that I never dreamed was a possibility. And that is someone who is a very success-driven and purpose-driven person. And that was a big fight for a lot of my life. And I could stop fighting and just be happy with life as it is now. And I swear, and y'all hear me talk about it, I sound fucking high a lot. A lot of the time. I sound drugged out. And that's because I truly live in this world of like sanity, where shit is just so clear and it's so fun. And don't get me wrong, I'll say it for the 50,000th time. It took a lot of work, but you're so worth it. You're so worth it. And I don't know why I just had a whisper to come on and be more honest about those feelings behind getting sober, and what it really looked like for me. And again, biggest blessing. So hopefully I didn't repeat myself too much this week. I don't know why I do that. It's the fucking crazy woman in me. And you get to keep your crazy too. Bonus. You get to keep your crazy. I got to keep mine. Love it. Thank God. I got even more fun, even more sassy. In the good ways. I care for others now. But you just get better and better and better. So I love you guys. And I hope you have a great week. Bye.